You're listening to WeDeepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of WeDeepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional love coach. WeDeepen.com is shining light on the human connection industry. We aggregate all types of social and transformational experiences that help people to have more meaningful, loving relationships. Go check them out at WeDeepen.com. In the top right-hand corner, you can sign up, become a member. There's about 400 people there who are journeying through these experiences, and I would love for you to join us. There's going to be more rolling out to you in 2023. One of those events that I'm so excited for is the 10th annual Feminine Weapon Day. That's January 30th, and for the first time ever in Austin, Texas, we will be celebrating on February 2nd, 2023. That's a Thursday. It's a concert fundraising experience to provide children of abuse, extreme poverty, and human trafficking with art and healing programs, relational skills. If you are currently single in a relationship or seeking community, we are the place for you. You can come learn skills, relational skills, be in states of play and joy and fun, and also find ways to give back to the kids, the world's most vulnerable beings. Love to have you join us. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, subscribe, follow, rate it, give it 5 stars. It helps more people to find it and helps me continuing to host it. Today's episode is a sensitive one. I was feeling disturbed in the wake of Stephen Twitch boss's death, with the media so quickly labeling his passing as a suicide. And I see how that has opened up conversations like the one that you're going to hear today, where people are sharing about their struggles. And I also worry or feel concerned about that he is being now kind of seen as this face of suicide. And I don't think it's fair to so quickly jump to assumptions, especially because I am aware that there is an open investigation happening and the events surrounding his death are very suspicious. I also worry about the media glorifying suicide and the children. You know, us as grown-ups, we can take in this information and we're sharing our stories, but the children and their brains are so impressionable right now, and we gotta be careful for them to see that man as committing suicide before we know that it's actually true. And imagine that they're thinking like, wow, he had it all and he wasn't even happy. How can I be happy? So this conversation, it's super vulnerable. It's between Derek Gray and I. Derek and I went to high school together. I shared something on my Facebook page. He responded to it, and it led to this discussion. Okay, enjoy.
I have an old friend, Derek Gray. We went to high school together. Derek were you valedictorian?
No, I was president of the SGA.
Okay, class president, but you were brilliant. Okay. So same, like you were involved. I will say, yeah. And it's been about, I guess, 20 something years since the two.
We saw each other at our 20-year reunion, and I wanted to vibe with you then, but it's just not. That's just not the place to do it, because I've seen where your path has gone. I've kind of gone into that same direction. A lot of the stuff that you post, I get it, And so when I saw you, I really wanted to have that time to vibe with you, but you can't really do that at a bar with a whole bunch of people at a reunion. So really, we haven't spoken pretty much for like almost over 20 years.
Over 20 years. Wow. And thank goodness for social media. This is one of the things that's a benefit of social media.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'll say that reunion was a really strange experience for me.
Yeah.
I did. I wanted to bond with people and connect, and it was allowed, and not to take anything away from the planning of it, because thank you for everyone who plans that experience. But it was a loud bar, and there was dancing, and I'm like, how do I dance with these people? We haven't seen each other in forever, and there's alcohol flowing, and you're going from one person to the next. Like, how are you? Mm-hmm. What have you been up to?
It's difficult. Yeah. Difficult.
I wanted to redesign reunions after having that reunion experience.
Yeah.
And even all the social dynamics were there. I can't remember who it was, but I felt like I was at the bar at one point talking to someone's husband, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be in too much of a conversation. It's their husband and this and that, and it's awkward. Oh, and she wants him. Christina, just sit here and be quiet.
Okay, yeah, because you were there by the bar, sitting down, you know what I mean, just trying to, but yeah, I do like, and maybe that's just that we're getting older, but I do like when I go back to Maryland and I can just chill with like how you do with your close-knit friends from high school that you've stayed in contact with into adulthood. I do the same thing. It's just like 6 of us and we're just vibing. Those are the reunions that really hold dear to me as well. It's like a lot less of the extra.
Where are you at now? Where do you live?
I live in Lawrenceville, Georgia, about 30 minutes outside of Atlanta. Yeah, I moved back in the summer. Yeah.
And you're a filmmaker now with
writer,
children and a wife.
Yes, and a wife, 2 children, 2 dogs. I live with my mom, and my mother-in-law live with us. So we are like the new age Full House here.
But well, you can feel a sense of belonging, I imagine, with inside of that household.
Yes. A lot of folks, a lot of love. So it's really cool.
So what inspired this conversation was yesterday there was a death that shocked many of us. Stephen, tWitch boss, passed away. It was reported publicly, instantly, in my opinion, as a suicide. And it really triggered me. His death shocked me, and the media response was very triggering. And I went to Facebook to share how I was feeling about that. And it sparked dialogue because I believe that he was taken out. And I also know that I think I said inside of that post that I understand that mental health is trending and many people are depressed, and that you never know what's going on with anybody. And yes, I agree to be kind and caring for each person you come across. And I've known suicide, and this to me seems like a disservice and unfair to him to instantly label it in that way.
Right.
And your response was thoughtful. And I will say, the person, it was one of my dear friends was the one who revealed the news of his death to me. And she is a Black woman. And, there's multiple perspectives in her, because there's one thing that's like her, I still remember she's a healer. And years ago, I had brought one of my friends, Timothy Bloom, who's a Black man, to one of her healing events. And she said to me after that event, "Where'd you get him?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean, where'd you get him?" She said, "Where'd you get the Black man?" And I was like, he's a friend. And she's like, "Bring more. Bring more of them. Bring more of them into healing spaces, because they're not in her." This is what she shared with me. They're not getting access to the mental health resources that are available. So there is, I see that his death and that it being labeled as suicide is opening up the conversation.
Right.
And my saying that mental health is trending, I said it in that way because I'm also a bit disturbed because I think that it's deeper than the mental health situation that is present in the world right now is rooted in something deeper than our brains are fucked up. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's the external world it's around. So go get help and seek a therapist and get on medication if you need it and go to the healing events. Yes, and we actually need to redesign the world because the prescription pills aren't the solution to all of our problems.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what I get. And I agree with you. But then I couldn't help but think about, if we're taking a step back, if we are listing it as trending, the connotation also for other individuals could also be like it's a fad. True, there's more to it than just, get the good fight, get the good meds, check your mental health, hashtag mental health day, let's wear purple, all that stuff. There is more to it than that. But also in the same regard, if we leave it as trending and not go into detail like you just did, right? And we're just, breaking down our words into these posts, then what does that do for the individual who has been there and then sees your words? Because your word trending, that triggered me this morning. And I was like, trending? It's almost like I think it's sort of like how when Me Too, hashtag Me Too, and everybody and their brother who went through something similar to that, hashtag Me Too. It brought attention to it. Hashtag Me Too is trending, but to say it was but we would never say, right, sexual abuse or people who've suffered from sexual abuse, that's trending today. Because if we did that, what does that say about the person who's a sufferer, who's looking to these stories, the valid stories, as somewhat as a way to help them and speak out in their own way? And by using those words, sometimes that might make a person like, because I don't want to come out and share my story, because then am I a part of the trending or am I part of, let's have an open dialogue about it? Let's deal with it. So that was mainly my thing about it. And then, of course, I guess we'll get into as far as why we or some other individuals may think that Twitch was taken out, and it wasn't because he didn't fit the profile, or because even his closest friends, don't think it was suicide. That whole conversation, all of that was very triggering for me because of the fact that when I would bring stuff up where I was struggling, I would get conversations of be strong. Or, Derek, you're just too sensitive. Those comments make it think back when I was at my lowest, okay, I'm just being sensitive. My whole life as a kid, Derek, you're just so sensitive. My family members, people who truly loved me. When I would vocalize things that bothered me, the response would be, Derek, you're too sensitive, or you're sensitive. So as I got older and my mind continued to get more fucked up as far as the external things that I would internalize and beat myself up about, those words come to me. I'm too sensitive. I just need to not to mention in the Black community, your friend is right. Yeah. And we do not have access. A lot of people in our community do not have access to the resources that we need. But also the other part of that is we're shunned, or we're looked as weak if we do seek that help. So a lot of us say, become functional depressed people. A functional alcoholic where, hey, Bob in marketing, he's, the top salesman, each week. But Bob's an alcoholic. He drinks alone daily. into a stupor and gets up, brushes his teeth. That's what, where I was, because you're looked at as being weak. Like, my father was a psychologist, but when my father started to have his own mental struggles, he did not go to seek a psychologist or a therapist. That's how deeply rooted this whole thing is. Keep your business your business. My dad told me that for as long as I can remember. On one hand, he was very forward thinking. Because he was a psychologist, he would tell me I could be in first grade. And I said, Dad, I don't really feel up to school. Like, so-and-so made me mad. And all I keep thinking about, he said, take a mental health day. He started saying that back in the 80s. So if we're talking about things that really are like, quote unquote, like trending, like hashtag mental health, my dad was doing mental health days back in the 70s and 80s. But the thing of the matter is, to say I want to seek help, or to say this hurt me, or this is bothering me, it was you're weak or you're only sensitive. We in this community don't do that. So we are forced to try to function, smile. So as I'm in high school, so I want to reverse it. So a lot of his close friends or friends of his friends feel that tWitch was taken out and he didn't match what they knew of him. It doesn't make sense. Even his mom, and from what I read, his mom or his brother even asked Allison, his wife, was there a suicide letter or was he killed? Like, what's going on? Because they didn't even see it. And the way I look at it is, if he did it right, they wouldn't. Because I would want to reverse it to anyone that's known me outside of me saying what I said today, which I've never said. A lot of things I said today on your post and my own personal post, I've never said outside of therapy. And I would like to ask, like, did you know in high school, when we were in interaction with each other daily, we were in several clubs together, some of our several similar circles, you and I, we were both involved in our own way. We were listed as, quote unquote, popular, right? If I were to tell you in high school was my first thought of wanting to kill myself, would that come as a surprise to you for what you knew me to be?
Actually, no. And I would have probably appreciated the conversation, because our class, we graduated in 1999. Mm-hmm. And that was the year Columbine happened. Mm-hmm. And I was really affected by Columbine. I remember going back to school that year Columbine happened. And then it was, we're processing like 3 days later, went back to school, and it was like, it was over. And I was like, what do you mean? What are we going to do? Like, this is, and I was so disturbed. I just could not comprehend. But I ended up moving, everyone moved on, but it just always sat with me. So it's interesting to hear you say that, because almost if you would have said that to me, I felt like we would have bonded.
We bonded over that.
And I would have probably been had someone to talk to, because I remember feeling like I had no one to talk to about Columbine then.
Yeah, it was the first of its kind for what we experienced, and it didn't impact a lot of people, but a lot of us were going through our own thing. And I'm glad to hear that. And here's another thing. There was a man. So again, to juxtaposition that with, there was a father of an actor from Blackish. I forget his name. His name is Jack. I'm not exactly sure. But he posted something today, a voicemail message from tWitch. And he posted it today. And it was a voicemail message where tWitch is calling him in the morning, asking if we could get together to talk when you have the opportunity. Not just about career stuff, but just about his voice is shaking. It doesn't sound like the guy, even from a TV standpoint, or, of course, I didn't know him outside of TV and what I saw on IG, but it didn't sound like the guy. It sounded like him, but it didn't sound like him, if you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And his voice is quivering, and he just wants someone to talk to. Mm. Now, my question is, if we were to talk to that guy, I wonder if he would be the same Christina that would have not been surprised, given what we were going through as teenagers. Well, I'm not surprised. So we're talking to Twitch's friends, family, And this guy, the father of the guy who played Jack on Blackish, that's the guy's name. I mean, that's the guy I'm talking about. I wonder would he have said something different, because his post was, I dream often what the outcome could have been had we had that sit down conversation, because he was very clear in saying not just about career stuff, but I want to talk to you about a husband, being a father, and his voice started to quiver. So even then, to me, it's like, okay, there's always somebody, and you kind of helped me get to my next thing, what I want to talk about. I think there's always somebody, even if it's not a close friend or family member, that may know something. But for the persona, and I think the pressure that we go through in our community, not just as men, but as Black men, Black people in the community, and as individuals who are looked upon, despite, regardless of your color, race, gender, are looked upon as the strong ones, the fun ones. They're the ones really that we got to look out for, because as an adult, when these memories, these thoughts start to come out and more, and I knew I just couldn't handle it anymore, there were a lot of people that were surprised by that. Why? Because all you're seeing is, when you see me at gatherings, when I go to gatherings, I really need to juice myself up, not like with drugs or anything, but I really need to psych myself up on putting on a show. Being the person I felt that people expected me to be. Mm-hmm. I had to keep the illusion alive, because the moment I didn't, then the questions start. Then I got to be vulnerable. And my biggest thing was I didn't want to be vulnerable, because I was told, you'll be weak. You'll be looked at as sensitive. You got to keep it to yourself. And eventually that stuff just piles up. And that's why I'm like, if his family and friends don't know or didn't know or had no idea, which there's nothing that would let me believe otherwise, that they were lying about that, that means that he's doing it right. Because it's our closest friends and family who we definitely don't want to know we have an issue. And from my standpoint, what I've been through, and I can only go by my own experiences, which is why, if in fact what the police reports or what the preliminary reports are saying are accurate, then I would say it does match up to what I've been through, and it makes sense to me. It resonates with me, and that's why I think this has impacted me as much and has got me out of my silence of getting involved with people's Facebook posts and writing my own. It's because I just resonate so much with them, and by grace of God, that wasn't me. That's the way I look at it.
I'm so grateful that you're speaking up and you are sharing your voice, and it's an important part of the conversation. And we all have different life experiences, so I can't fully resonate what it's like to be you. You mentioned that there were 3 times in your life that you contemplated suicide. Mm-hmm. And you didn't do it.
No.
There was suffering. I do believe that Twitch, or known as close friends as Boss, was suffering. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that if he did pull that trigger on that gun, that he did it to protect his family. Mm-hmm. Whatever that phone call that you're referring to, I haven't heard about that phone call, but I'm sure he was suffering and he was scared. I don't know where the hit came from, because that's my thing, but there was something, and the reason that it's hard for me to fully comprehend, because I understand you have this relation because you've struggled, and I've struggled in my own way. You've struggled in your own way, and yet you didn't pull that trigger. Mm-hmm. And typically, as preparing for this podcast, because it's so sensitive, like, who am I to have this discussion? The first thing is that, the circumstances when I say circumstances, you say signs. They're generally circumstances that cause people to commit suicide. And if I just love to take a moment and for us to go through these circumstances together. This is from CDC's website, risk and protective factors. circumstances that increase suicidal risk, individual risk factors, previous suicidal attempt, history of depression and other mental illness, serious illness such as chronic pain, criminal legal problems, job financial problems or loss, impulse or aggressive tendencies, substance use, current or prior history of adverse childhood experiences, sense of hopelessness, violence, victimization, and or perpetration, relationship risk factors, bullying, family loved one's history of suicide, loss of relationship, high conflict or violent relationships, social isolation, community risk factors, lack of access to healthcare, suicide cluster in community violence, historic trauma, discrimination, societal risk factors, stigma associated with seeking help and mental illness, easy access to lethal means of suicide among people at risk. And last is unsafe media portrayals of suicide. That last one, the unsafe my pronunciation, unsafe media portrayals of suicide. I had to Google that one and be like, what exactly do they mean there? And that's where I found all types of studies that show how the media on the news and also in TV shows on Netflix, they talk about Being 13, and there's another show they mention how they portray suicide. Okay. And why this is opening up the conversation to talk about it, reading that also made me even more disturbed because of seeing the quick assumption that declaration that he committed suicide is also something that gives other people permission to commit suicide. They see it. Oh, look at this happy Black man. Look, even he has problems. Even he took himself out. And I don't want to turn it into something's like of someone's character for doing it, but I want to say you did not commit suicide.
No.
Why?
First time was fear. And ultimately, there was always something that I felt that it wasn't over in a good way. And I quote the song like from Sam Cooke, I'm afraid to die because I don't know what's up there beyond the skies. And from a change is going to come. And that's normally what the song I would normally play every time that I wanted to do it. I've, tried to, I just couldn't. And I would continue to get to the end of it, to the point where I would pray, just don't wake up in the morning. Just don't wake up in the morning. That'll be easier. Just don't wake up in the morning. And that was what I would hang on to. So I've never got the nerve to do what supposedly, based upon reports, tWitch did, right? But I was envious. That's who I was. I was envious at the people that were able to do it. So I couldn't even take my life the way I wanted to because, one, I was too afraid because I was very much raised and, my mother being Baptist, very much raised in that, very much heavily into Old Testament ways and mythology and ways of thinking. So I would resonate that. And it got to the point, though, as a younger person, which is why I don't know why anyone ever really did check on me, I would play the same song every time I wanted to do it. That same song by Sam Cooke every time. And any family member that's listening to this will know that for sure. It'll probably jog their memory. Every time They knew that something was wrong with me or I was sad about something, and every time. But no one ever did anything. And each time that I tried to do it, I would get to the brink and couldn't follow through because I was scared. And that would add on even more beating up on myself, more self-hate, self-talk to myself. That I felt like a piece of shit. That I wasn't worth it. You can't even kill yourself right. Those are the things that would circle, and it paralyzes you and it makes you sad. So you have your breakdown, you have your meltdown, then you get yourself together and you go to school, or then, during my last time, you go to work and then you just try to deal with whatever it is you're going through until you can go home and break down again. And then the self-hate, the downspeak about who you are as a person, because you can't even kill yourself right. You're too scared to do that. So you're weak and you're a punk. You're scared. Those are the things that happened with me. So back in the days that I'm in my darkest place, wasn't the glamorization that got me, but I can see that. Because it would be more so, it would be the jealousy, the envy of the fact that he or somebody else was able to go through it and I can't. And I am just, any reason to talk down about yourself, any reason to not look at yourself as a person, a loving person. That's what I dealt with throughout those 3 times that I got that bad. That's what I had to go through each time. And it wasn't until the final time that there was a spiritual intervention. And that's what I go into when we were talking about what I wrote, the book that I wrote. That was the turning point to everything. After about 15 years of going through it, that's the point. That was the change of everything. So I never was able to complete it, but I was mad at myself for not being able to do it because it was most of fear and a little shred left of, I'm not very big on making yourself feel bad over religion. I don't like people utilizing the Bible as ways of fear tactics, but I think that'd be the one time where, looking back, that I'm glad that little bit of programming that I had about religion, saved me on those times, because I understood exactly what that song was, which is probably why I played it so much when I was going through my hardest time, because that line always sticks with me. It's too hard living, but I'm afraid to die because I'm not sure what happened, what's up there beyond the skies. So
speaking of music, the first death that I experienced, I was 7 years old, and my uncle committed suicide, and he was a police officer. I remember the officers knocking on my door as a kid and telling my mom, because it was my mom's sister's husband, that he passed away, died, committed suicide. And, then what happened next was a funeral with the patrol car after patrol car after patrol car and the sirens, and my little brain trying to comprehend it because I loved him and had such a close relationship with him. And it was, and the song, there was that song by Wilson Phillips about saying goodbye. It don't you know, things can change, things can go your way if you hold on. But that song came out, I believe, 3 days after he left. And it was, I just always remember being like, why couldn't that song come out right before? But the music that we hear that speaks to us in those moments, and the way that the body brings it in. They say music is medicine and movement is medicine. I want to go into that transformational moment and how the book then was birthed through that experience. But before we get there, I would love if you could shed some light on these circumstances. I kind of went through some circumstances that that catalyze people to commit suicide, or risk factors that to look for, especially if you are a therapist and somebody comes into your office, you kind of ask that question, like, are you working? Do you have a community support system? What was going on for you?
As a support, or what was going on to me that kind of like added towards my depression, or
like what would this was it just completely like everything in my head was a mess, or were there circumstances outside of yourself that created challenge on your mental health?
It started at an early age, at about 6 years old, in elementary school. I started school too early. Nowadays, if you're not 5 by the time Labor Day runs around, you got to wait till the whole other school year before you start. But back in 1984, that wasn't the case. So I'm 4 years old. I don't turn 5, or 1985, it wasn't the case. So I'm 4 years old. I don't turn 5 until December. So I start school. And from the beginning, it was a mistake. I was still like in preschool mode. I couldn't grab some of the things that someone should get at age 5, according to the teachers. So I was constantly ridiculed for being dumb. I was called that several times by the students. But the teachers reinforced it by clearly being annoyed when I had a question, or I did something, wrong. This annoyance, constantly just being made to feel dumb, stupid. That's the running thread throughout my life, that my feelings of lack of intelligence. That's the thing that always got me. And the seed was planted at age 6. So instead of holding me back in kindergarten, they're telling my parents it wouldn't do them any good, so I then was held back. I wasn't held back. I was allowed to proceed to the first grade, which things really start to get crazy, because now these kids are now developed more. They can color, they can write at least. And, I'm what they call scribble scrabble. They're scribble scrabbles, And I remember there was one time where the teacher was going to call on someone to do something, to pick a letter or something like that. And one of the kids in the class says, "Don't pick Derek. He doesn't know anything." These moments just kind of reinforced. So when they finally decided to hold me back and I caught up, so the kid that was born in January and me, we're pretty much like this, So now I'm within my true age group. They didn't know, like, wow, what happened? He's smart now. And even though that happened, Derek is still holding on to when he was 4, 5, and 6, where he was looked upon as not smart. And even though they never came out and said that, that's how I perceived it. So that continued through. So every time there's a mistake, a human error, I weigh that times 2,000. To this day, I deal with this. With therapy and time and things and meditation, all of that, I know ways to work it out. But those are the things that weigh on me. And those are the things that you're not good enough. That's a thread you hear a lot of people say, but it's deeper. To your point, these little words, which we do agree on, sometimes these little sentences or statements, those are trendy. Like, I'm not good enough, or, you're good enough, you're great. That's awesome. But what does that mean? And normally what that means when people feel they're not good enough, there's a narrative that plays in their brain of whatever, fill in the blank. Everyone has their I'm not good enough thing. And mine was, you are dumb. You are stupid. And if I ever made a mistake, as little as I remember learning how to drive, and my dad thought it was a good idea to teach me how to drive on stick. And so not only am I learning how to drive for the first time, but I'm also have to learn how to use the stick shift. And I was terrible at it. He yells at me like, most dads kind of do when they're doing those things, for the most part, I guess. But I was just like devastated. Like that was another Sam Cooke moment where I just wanted to go and hide and just tell myself how dumb I am for the next hour. Those were the things. So if anything, we all go through issues, but you're not smart. You're dumb. Mistakes made, even the littlest of mistakes in high school, especially, during that time, if I messed up, I was in plays or whatever. And I remember there was a song, at the time I wanted to be like a singer, man, but then your voice changes and you no longer have those pipes, and you gotta like give up the ghost. But I remember being in high school in this play, and the teacher, because of my register, she had to lower the register of the song, and was even contemplating having me keep the part in the play, but have another kid sing the part. Another Sam Cooke moment. So like the song should be sung in the key that it's written. So we may have to get so-and-so to sing the song, and you just do the acting and he'll sing your song. My only solo in the whole entire thing, my first solo ever in a high school production. And that's happened, nothing against her. She did what she thought she had to do. But that was another moment where I'm like, man, you can't do anything right. Those moments, the teacher never, but that's how I took it, because that's my narrative. That I'm not good enough. And as I got older and had, as being a writer, trying to, provide for your family with a 9-to-5 that you hate, trying to be the best husband you can be. And then, at the time my son was born, all of that, hate my job, all this stuff, and getting hell there. I feel like I'm not doing enough at home. That all came to a head. And that was my last time that I contemplated on my birthday, where before that picture I sent you, that was at my birthday. So I'm doing my best impression of a happy person in that picture. And I've got let me get, thinking about it. But I got my son in my hand, my arm. He wasn't even 1 yet. And I've got my wife like doting over me. It's my birthday. And I just finished driving around the block wondering how maybe I could do it in my car and it wouldn't be a problem. And every time I would get the courage to do it, I would chicken out. But as I'm driving, I'm thinking about all those things. I'm thinking about all of those issues that I have. And that continued into the next year until the moment happened where finally something intervened. And then I was able to get the help that I needed. But that's my narrative, long story short. But that was a narrative. And it started as a child, because we're not born like this. We're born into this collective, and we're taking on all the energy of everybody else, especially if you are blessed enough. And so sometimes it's hard to believe that, but if you're blessed enough to be able, in a sense, to feel other people's energy and other people's vibe, sometimes before you learn how to utilize that gift, it can really hurt you. And I feel that's what I was, a victim of circumstance. I think I now look at it as a gift, being able to kind of sense people's pain, sense people what they're going through, and be there for people. But as a young child, being able to pick up on that vibe, that was tough, because now I am the receiving end of what I know you feel about me. And now, as I get older, I just continue to composite that and double down on it, and just, again, be the worst person possible to myself. Doing what the people who started this for me did, but now I'm the person, I'm doing it to myself. That's with the self-talk of how, terrible of an idiot I am, which is how I used to, refer to myself as,
Wow. Yeah, I can see the layers of the bullying and the misunderstanding and the the lack of presence with you to understand you as a child, to support you in your development. I also, as you're speaking, I often worry about us being in a society that is so offended by so many things that many people are becoming. I can't imagine being a child nowadays, like the fear of speaking up and sharing your thoughts and being criticized for saying the wrong things, especially those little brains that they're still learning reality. And yeah, it's a challenging experience. There is a story that is coming through to share, but I'm not sure it's appropriate right now. So maybe I'll pin that. Okay. So you mentioned this last time, this third time, 33rd birthday, you didn't do it. And then, but you're still suffering after that moment. It's not like you didn't do it and you made the decision and all of a sudden the suffering went away. You said there was a moment, there was something that happened. And what happened?
I came across a book online by Wayne Dyer called, it's been so long, but it was also about wishes fulfilled. And I started to listen to I had like an hour and a half drive from home. So I got the Audible. So I started to listen to Wayne Dyer talk about, wishes fulfilled. And he got into something called the Moses Code, where when Moses asked the burning bush, which he at the time thought was God, but I think Moses was just vibing that day. And so he's connecting, and he asked the bush, who should I call you? What's your name? He says, I am that I am. So Wayne Dyer at the end of it goes over ways in which you can manifest change in your life by saying, I am that. Hold the picture of the thing that you want, be it a state of mind, be it even materialistic, or be it, certain things. At least I thought materialistic, which comes later. But that's how you're able to do that. So I said, let me give that a shot. So I started to do that. I would wake up, I would light the candles. I was like, I am that I am. And what I was doing at first was, I'm a millionaire. I have this car. I no longer work at this job. And something came to me and just told me it wasn't authentic. I don't know where it came from, Christina. It wasn't anything. I was by myself. There was no one playing any games with me. But as clear as I am talking to you, as clear as I hear you through my speaker, I heard this voice tell me what I was doing was not authentic. And so almost like I have known this all my life, which I have, just forgot, instead of going after the material, I went after the feeling that materialistic thing would give me. So what I was really looking for was safety. I was really looking for contentment and happiness. That's the thing that I have been chasing since I was 6 years old. Well, actually 4 years old, but it really started to hit me around that time. I have been chasing it. And that's what I want. I want to feel content. I want to feel happy. I want to feel unconditional love. That's what I want to do. So I said, I am happiness. I am contentment. I am love. As I'm saying this, it's like my lungs got filled with air. It was so much. I couldn't even speak it, but in my mind I was saying, oh my God, oh my God. And it's just so much. Before I think I'm going to choke, it's like the water is filling your lungs. And then as soon as I did that, I am in a completely different area. And I get up from where I was sitting. At least I thought it was me, but it was not me. It was like the spiritual me. I got up from here and I was facing, as material, contrived as people may think it is my truth, this light. And the light stood for everything that I was meant to be. And it told me when I went through this light, I would never be the same again. It was almost like the opposite. So suicide is like the opposite. On those moments that I tried to take my life or give up in that sense, I did it because I wanted the pain to go away. Because I knew if the pain went away, I would never be the same again because I wouldn't have to deal with the pain anymore. On the other end of it, if I went through this light, not only would I not be the same again, but I would be a better, happier person, what I've been seeking. I go through this and then all this information just started downloading as far as why I went through what I went through as a child, why I wanted to kill myself and I never could do it. Why it's okay to admit those things, what this whole purpose was, how this design of my life happened, all the negativity that happened in my life, there was a reason for it. I had forgotten those reasons, those experiences, but there was a reason for it. And once that happened, the voice was right. I never was the same again, but for the better. The bad times still happen. But whereas before those bad times would sideline me and have me put on, Sam Cooke and then think of ways I was going to go ahead and just get, do away with myself. I now know there is a place I can go to kind of shift. So earlier on, you talked about the world itself. It's bigger than just mental health. It's bigger than just medication and therapy. It is a collective that we are a part of that really works. And people get so wrapped up in what religion says and all this other stuff that they fail to realize this stuff really exists. You can call it whatever you want. And I know some of the people who are deep in religion may get upset by that statement. You can call it whatever you want. You can call God Mo. If you feel like calling God Mo, call him Mo. But Mo is going to help you. This Mo, whether it's positive thinking, whether it's light, whether it's manifestation, whatever Mo means to you, universe, whatever fancy word you want to give Mo, give it to Mo. Connect with something. Imagine something bigger than yourself that will love you regardless. And that stuff works. So the idea is if we all thought that way and we all got together and thought that way, let all of our preconceived notions just go by the wayside and just focus in on that, that will change the world. And the idea that I know there are several people either watching this, listening to this, or outside of here who don't believe that, that's the same reason why we're here where we are today. Because it's a collective that needs to change, a collective and just shift in the mindset needs to change. And that's the problem because it can work individually. Because that's the change. That's the change that completely helped me with my life. And even to this day, when I have, because it doesn't go away, or even like moments, like this whole thing with Twitch, it really did bother me. It really has bothered me. But now I know I can go to a place where it doesn't. Mm-hmm. I know I can go to a place, and it doesn't mean suicide, that I can go to reset, gain understanding. It's the reason why you and I can have two differences of opinion and be able to have this type of conversation. How nothing that was said to you today, which I already knew based upon, I don't know who I saw go through our shift first, but I feel like it almost happened almost together. Or maybe when I went through mine, I started to notice, because that's the way it works too, right? Attracts like, right? And that I started to notice via social media that you went from starting your business, but I was like, there's something different about her, though. There's something different beyond just trying to be an entrepreneur and make that leap. It is a shift. And so that's the reason. Like attracts like. And there's a reason why no matter what anyone said to you today, it never escalated like so many conversations I'm sure we both have bore witness to on social media. I feel there's a reason why, even though I might have disagreed with you, I immediately want to come to you with love because I love you. And I understand that we are the same as far as that spirit is concerned. So all I wanted to do was, I know your heart. I know this is what you felt, but this is how I feel about what you felt. And now we're having a conversation about it that will then help other people. That is the shift that took me to that next level and made me understand why all of the things that have happened to me, why I respect it, why I honor it, and why I know that I'll never go back to that place, and being able to help my sons through their journey. I can't do their journey for them, and I have no idea what they have designed for their lives, but in hope that I'm able to manifest and able to assist them in their own journey, to give them that sounding board that they may need, and understanding that if I can't, it is a part of life, and it is a part of something that I truly believe we created this outline before we descended here. And we're just filling in the blanks. But it's like the chapters are already there based upon what we want and what we have come here to do. And we're just filling in the blanks when we get here. That's the way I look at it.
Well, yeah, I often think that we're so spiritually malnutritioned. And the access to resources and information. You mentioned this book that you found by Wayne Dyer, and that by the time you got that book, you were 33, 34?
33.
And for me, of what you saw is like, it was in my early 30s, my first entry was beginning to study Kabbalah. And it was the first time that I saw the world differently. It was explained. I was thinking, I was like, why didn't they give us this in school? Like, everything we desire is outside of our comfort zone, and share about the magic of the universe, and that there's a higher power and miracles are possible, and to act in kindness. And to realize that we are all, we're all suffering in some way, and life is about contentment and connection, and we're seeking belonging and community and find spaces for community. And yet, so many of us are in isolation. And I often worry about, the children these days are struggling, having gone through COVID, and they're seeing the world's darkness. Again, I speak about that one incident in Columbine in 1999 that affected me. I mean, the things I think around that time, it was like also, OJ Simpson, and that was like the extent. Those are big ones. And then in college, that was September 11th happened. And it started too, but now, I mean, this is like a daily occurrence for these children, that their little brains are having to absorb this information. But the access to resources and the access to see that, hey, there's something much bigger available to us. And it generally happens through connection. Because getting access to the resource, someone gives you that book, someone has a deep conversation with you. I also, these moments of darkness are because why maybe the one thing I think that, I don't know if the one thing that we differed on is that me saying that term, mental health is triggering, or if that you believe that Twitch killed himself.
I believe the opposite of what you believe, but for the same reason. I don't want us to be so quick to think that he didn't either, that we then kind of shut the door on individuals who don't glorify it, but understand that, hey, pretending that it's okay can be detrimental. So it's like, I shouldn't be, I guess let me put it this way. I shouldn't be, talking about the collective I shouldn't be depressed because I have it all. and I'm smart. You know, I got a family. I've got this wonderful career. You know, people love me. I shouldn't be sad. I just feel that, you know, no people can feel sad that way. It's a true thing. So I guess what I was projecting, my thoughts was back to what I was going through, which is, you know, don't say anything. You know what I mean? Why are you upset? Why are you this? You know, just be stronger. You know, so for me, I was projecting that, like, you know, maybe he did. That's what I was thinking. Maybe he did, Christina, but maybe he did, you know, just because he doesn't fit the profile doesn't mean, you know, that he didn't do it. Because when I'm trying to explain to people during my time of asking for help, what I was normally the thing that kept, you know, people kept talking to me about.
Yeah,
was like, you know, got this, you've got that, just be strong.
Yeah, and I view so this is you know, darkness and light. So in this dark moment, suicide or not suicide, this contemplation of it has enabled this conversation, which brings more light into the world. Through this darkness, we are able to see and have new experiences that are able to share. It's like the example of you know, dark and light is needed in the world. And there's a show, Initiation, on Gaia. Gaia is like the spiritual Netflix. Yeah. And in episode number 6 or 7 of the first season of Initiation, it's called The Architects of Reality. Mm-hmm. And the host speaks about, in other dimensions, the angel and the devil work together. Mm-hmm. And that the angel comes down to us and it's like, hey, Derek, you know, go this way. And you're like, da, 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 da. I'm not listening. She's like, come on, go this way. And she goes up to the devil and she's like, hey, you know, I keep telling him to go this other way, but he's not listening. Can you just help me out, please? And I was like, sure. Let's go down. Bang, car crash, illness, tragedy, like, which then shifts us and it opens up these portals of conversation. So I'm grateful that his death has opened up these portals of conversation. And for me, is that when I come into the conversation with this, you know, I'll say is like, yeah, I actually cannot even I cannot even meet you that he might have committed suicide. I'll say that's how much my instinct is just in such a deep knowing. If he did commit suicide or if he did pull the trigger of that gun, I believe that he did it to protect his family for some other bigger reason. It wasn't because he willfully pulled the trigger. Now, again, I don't want to take away from anybody's experience who is suffering. And the work that I do in the world, it just defies all of the odds. When you look at those Instagram pictures, and again, social media for sure, it's out in the world, and who's to know what's really? I do know a lot of people are sharing things that is not real, the reality, but you can see the authenticity and you can see the connection, the eye contact that he has. And when I read this list of the circumstances, this does not fit in the profile. He also was a 40-year-old man, which means that he has gone through the shit of his life to get to this place, and now has 3 young children that he is providing for. And I just think it's a deformation of character and unfair to him to say that that's what had happened until there's proof to prove that was the case.
Okay. And we can agree to disagree on that only because there's also, we remember stuff that happened before So You Think He Can Dance. So he had a whole life before he came on the scene. And those demons don't just go away because now you're a public figure who's so happy and have all these things. Even if you're not a public figure, because when I was going through my shit, I was not a public figure by any means. But even at the height of my life, getting everything I ever wished for, down to the dog and the picket fence. I literally had a dog and a white picket fence and a wife and a kid. Had everything I've ever wanted as a kid. I'm still like not happy. And there's just certain people that, hey, that despair gets so bad that they're not afraid to go. So the only thing I would say was that, yes, those things exist. Those things to look out for exist. And a lot of those things do stem from childhood. I know that he was raised by his grandfather. He referred to as his dad. I don't remember any mention of, a father in the picture. I know he's got a mom, he's got a brother, and he's got his dad, who's his 84-year-old grandfather. We don't know what he went through. We don't know. Before the first time I knew this man existed, because I was a big fan of So You Think You Can Dance, and he was a standout because I think he came in, he didn't win it. I think he was runner up. And then I was like, yo, when he came on Ellen DeGeneres, oh, that's the same dude from So You Think. That's when, to me, he was like on my radar of like knowing him. But before and I think someone recently just posted his audition video. And when he was like nervous, ready to do something big for his life and all that other stuff. But before that moment, when the director said action, we don't know. But I do know this, because it's happened to me. Those demons from childhood have a way of creeping up. And my only concern is, and I hope, not hope, because he's no longer here, so it still sucks. But yes, if it comes out that this could open it up, because we also know there have been situations where the government, Marilyn Monroe comes to mind, where people can make something look like it was suicide. How do you take all those pills, Marilyn? But then you know what I mean? Bobby Kennedy just left, and I don't want us to get, tapped or anything, but that was just one example of many where someone has set something up to appear. We don't know if he went to that hotel room to confront someone and things got out of hand. And they made it seem to be, and so definitely, even as a writer, seeing enough shows, I know it's possible, right? But I guess I'm just both ways. I'm just like, yes, we don't want to rush to judgment. I agree with you, not just about Twitch, but about other issues. We're so quick to get the headline story and be the first to report, right? That we forget about this person has a family, this person has this, but that. Imagine if their family didn't know this yet. Imagine if his wife was still trying to get confirmation and this hit. So there's many reasons why we still need to show restraint before we post something. So I guess as I was talking out loud, my biggest thing is just being mindful of the terms we're using. But I think also from your standpoint, as I'm hearing you and I'm sensing where you're coming from, it also for you was like, hey, this was someone who doesn't fit the profile. This is someone that, his friends are hurt by this because we just don't know yet the whole story. And we need to be more responsible before we put it out there. So I do, like I said, I still see your side of it. So I just hung on more so to the trending question about it and making sure that by us trying to find justice on how Twitch's story was revealed in this particular situation, this investigation, that we don't then shut down those who saw themselves in this guy, feel terrible, and are trying to seek help for that. I think that was my thing of walking that fine line.
Yeah, it is definitely walking a fine line. And here it's, there's an uncomfortableness that comes with speculating someone else's death. And I also think it's important because if I step back and see a fuller picture, and when I speak, I can get called a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. But if you want to start going into what was happening in the world around him and where he was positioned, it looks like he saw, okay, so here's my work. Mm-hmm. WeDeepen. Yes, I run WeDeepen and Feminine Weapon. The 10th annual Feminine Weapon Day is coming up. It's January 30th. We're celebrating February 2nd in Austin, Texas. And it's a fundraiser for children of abuse, extreme poverty, and human trafficking. I have been working with organizations that have been supporting these children who've experienced the level of abuse and molestation. The stories are beyond. They're incomprehensible, and most people, when you share them, want to turn away. It's like when the animal videos come on the TV, and people are like, "Turn that off, change the channel." Like, that's the stories that I hear of the children, and so having been doing this work for a decade, and I remember 5 years in, there was a film, Trafficked was the name of the film. And the creator of that film, Conor Cantor, sponsored Feminine Weapon Day. She was one of our biggest donors into it because that film was coming out, starring Ashley Judd. And I watched that film. I went to the premiere of it, and there was, the filmmakers on stage after, and they had a Q&A, and they talk about, in the film, there's a stat around the business of human trafficking and sex trafficking is the money that's moved through there is more than when you combine Apple, Google, all the major companies in the world. There's more money in that business. And I know a lot of people. I've been referred to as the human LinkedIn. Okay. And yet I have never met anybody who's worked in that industry. And yes, there has been many speculations over the past recent years of Hollywood's involvement inside of it. And to go a little deeper, again, I'm going to label me a conspiracy theorist, everyone here. You're welcome to do it. I am just trying to figure this shit out because I care about the well-being of our world. And something strange is going on. Specifically, this only comes in the week after the Balenciaga scandal came to the surface. So then you have Ellen DeGeneres' involvement. He was on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Ellen DeGeneres, about what I know. I'm sure there's always deeper into every story. I'm only seeing the surface, but what I've caught attention to is that her employees came out during COVID of mistreatment. Okay. It was a very harsh environment to be working with her. And around that time, Boss was promoted to be the executive producer of the show. And Sean King had shared in his post when he announced that Twerk had passed away. He shared that Twerk had actually come to him and asked for advice of how he talks to Ellen about discrimination and the Black deaths that were happening. And I also heard, and this is again, little voices on the outskirts were like, hey, we never actually heard Ellen DeGeneres ever comment or speak about that. And so the show was coming to an end after 19 seasons. It's ending right now. And about 4 months ago, Ellen DeGeneres' former lover ran her car into a house.
Yeah, and died. Yeah.
Weird. So when I see that this man comes out dead so quickly by suicide, I see all this stuff and it looks strange, especially if I have been in situations where I've felt the times that I felt suicidal were more around the entrepreneur journey and money oriented. Right. And so there were circumstances, but if I did go out in a strange way, I'd sure as fuck want people to be like, What? No. Question this.
Okay.
Question this. Please question this. Mm-hmm. So when an hour after his passing, Ellen DeGeneres is commenting, and it's like, what? It's like, you're going to accept, oh, my friend just killed himself that has been working on my show, my producer, who every day, like, I get that mental health is challenging, but like, if we just accept these narratives as true, there's something deeper and darker going in the world that we're completely not acknowledging, that I think is actually at the root of our problems.
Okay. So what you're looking at is almost like the example of the whole Marilyn Monroe Kennedy situation, where they said it was suicide, even though even after the autopsy, it really still didn't confirm that, because pills don't even digest. Something else is going on. But the world, until much later, finally started to say, hey, what's going on with that? That doesn't make any sense. And then start questioning. That's where you are right now, is what I'm getting. The coincidence is a little high that those are the connections that we have. We got Anne, and everyone's going to brush her off because Anne is recovering, user, and, multiple personalities. And,
why was she a user, and why did she have multiple personalities?
Right.
Like, even just you, like, asking you the question, Derek, why were you going to commit suicide? 5 years old. This is the story. Like, why? Oh, so you were bullied. Teachers didn't understand you. Nobody sat and was present with you. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So how do we recreate a world where little Derek gets raised differently in the future?
Right.
And also too, is I just see as we're so busy with neglecting the deeper questions, because again, there are 150 million orphans worldwide. There are 80 million children living without a single parent. There is suffering happening in the world. And if we, again, it's
looking beyond that. It's looking beyond the surface and seeing the why. Let's ask why. Why was she a user? What happened as a child? What happened during this situation that caused her? How can we make sure it doesn't happen to another child, instead of kind of just brushing it all off as, oh, that's just crazy Anne?
Yeah. Why did all the conspiracy theorists think Ellen DeGeneres is a pedophile? Why? Is it they're loony and they're crazy?
Oh.
I don't know, but you look at a man, again, this is where the profile doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. A man who's thriving in his career, moving his body constantly mm-hmm. in dance and movement, mm-hmm. like an authentic smile on his face, a true circle of good friends, access to resources, abundant access to resources in circles and communities of those resources. Mm-hmm. And working, though, with somebody who was positioned in the media as hurtful and harmful, I'm led to think he saw something he shouldn't have seen, or knows something he shouldn't know.
There is a lot of context around that just makes me wonder, because even though my wife may not have known that, okay, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, commit suicide or something like that, I think it would be at least something immediately if I left and didn't take the car. I understand her being concerned the next day that, okay, not only has he gone, but he never took his car. He's been gone all night. That's weird. Let me figure out what's going on. But I wonder what he had to tell her, like, I'm going for a walk. Like, what was the circumstances that he had to say to be able to leave like that so weirdly without anyone following him? There is more to this. I do feel there is more to this. That you'll get no argument from me on that. That's been bothering me the whole entire time. From a standpoint, I wonder if she was able to know about this And if he felt comfortable in sharing something was wrong, that she could have followed him, stopped him from leaving. I'm sure she's going through a whole rack of this herself right now, which adds to the tragedy of this. I'm sure. What if this? What if that? But the whole thing about leaving the car behind, that's bothered me from day one. Why would he leave his car behind, period? Even if he was going to commit suicide. And that was the immediate goal. My question always has been, but why take the chance of being seen and stopped? You know, why'd you leave the car behind? So when you add this whole thing about being directed, and then I start thinking, I wonder did things just get real when he arrived to this location? And then that's where the gun comes into play. And then you wonder, and then you wait to see, was it registered with him? Was it his? Some things that can start to peel back that onion. Then the imagination in me starts like, I wonder, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is an open investigation.
They pass it off.
Yeah. And that's why too, when people, I saw one of the articles saying that it's confirmed that he died of a self-inflicted gunshot to the head. Coroner says case is closed. And I'm like, the coroner is just somebody who tells you that somebody's dead. That's
an investigation.
That's not like, come on, people.
That's where the media. That's also where, and that's also the part where I think we're in alignment on that part too. Just the need to tell the story that it was so much that the coroner. That's not who's doing the investigation. That's not the person who's connecting the dots here, unless they decide to sweep it under the rug again. The only example I have recently, in quote unquote recent time, was the Marilyn Monroe situation where like, oh yeah, committed suicide. Let's move on. Let's close it, until someone later down the line realizes, okay, there's something else going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's, I'm going to wrap this and then I can continue one thing. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Derek. Is your book for sale?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's Derek L. Gray, The Sum of All Things, Connecting with the Spirit and God Within Us All. In us all.
Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing. It was impactful for me to hear your story. And even though I don't agree that his death was a suicide, this is an important conversation to have. And I'm grateful that we're able to have it. And it was the catalyst for it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Until next time, I love you.